Hey, welcome to DevOps Summit Canada 2021. This is a panel discussion. We're going to dig into the state of value stream management report. Super excited to be here. On the panel, we'll kind of quickly do some round robins. So Brian, Gary, be ready to introduce yourself in just a moment. My name is Danny Preston. I'm the Strategic Transformation Advisor over at TaskTop. So you might have heard of the book Project to Product. Our founder, Mick Kirsten, wrote that, and I work for that company. Have a background in industrial engineering. So I've been doing some form of value stream management for a while, started out in manufacturing, and then also kind of bled that over into doing agile coaching, agile consulting, that kind of stuff. And then now I get to bring those skills to work with our customers and help them realize better value to customer quicker in that. So a little bit about me. Brian, you want to jump in, introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. I'm Brian Muskoff. I'm the head of product management for HCL Software DevOps. HCL Software is a full enterprise DevOps portfolio of best-in-breed DevOps tooling, everything from agile work item management, source control management to CI/CD, and automated testing and application security. So we've got kind of end-to-end platform for our customers. But like you, Danny, I actually have an industrial and systems engineering degree as well. And yeah, back in the 90s, was studying Deming and lean practices, Toyota process, and so forth. And it's great to see a lot of those best practices evolve into software best practices, and to see it emerge kind of formally as a category in our space is super exciting, and can't wait to dive into the details of this report.
Yeah, it's gonna be very cool. All right, Gary, why don't you give a quick intro?
Sure. Yeah, I'm an author and also an IT consultant. My last book was titled Driving DevOps with Value Stream Management, so it's very appropriate to this conversation. I too started manufacturing Texas Instruments years and years ago. Thank you. So I was not a trained industrial engineer. I came from the Naval Academy, so I had a general engineering background with a minor in economics and a master's in business when I joined them. But it was all about lean production control systems, and I went on to be a consultant in that area. And then also providing, I was a software product manager for case tools that were used for business process reengineering and analysis kind of work. And a lot of that, my philosophical leanings were toward lean. So I've been around lean for a long time, both in manufacturing, but also service-oriented companies, and then business process reengineering, business process analysis, kind of my forte, if you will. But more recently, last 15 years, managing very large software projects, over 100 people, developers, anywhere from 11 to 20 product teams, usually brought in when they're failing to bring them in and get them turned around and back on the right track. So that's kind of my forte.
Awesome. Great to have you here, Gary. And then Richard too, we're doing some quick intros. Great to see you again, old friend. And so glad to have you on the panel here. Old meaning in the dearest sense of words, not that you are aged at all, but good stuff. So
I guess either would be fair.
So we're doing some quick intros. Would you like to introduce yourself to the group as we get going?
Sure. My name is Rich Naster, and I am Vice President and Chief Scientist at Digital AI. And my role there is multifaceted, both in product development and providing thought leadership in the areas of value stream management, agile, lean, and DevOps. Been doing agile, lean, and transformations for about 15 years at least, software development for about 30 years. And prior to Digital AI, I worked for Scaled Agile, where I was a methodologist and principal consultant.
Awesome, man. Good to have you here. And Steve, last but not least, love to have you introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Danny, and thanks for jumping in. I know I had a terrible calendar mishap, so I really appreciate the help. Happy to contribute however I can. I'm Steve from Toronto. I run a consulting company that's focused on value streams called Visible Value Stream Consulting, and very familiar with the folks in the panel. Big fans of all of you.
Thanks, Steve. Same here.
Cool stuff. Well, we're all loosely connected to this value stream consortium. If you're watching this and haven't had a chance to understand what's going on there, it's really a pretty cool thing where a bunch of companies that would normally be competitors are actually joining forces to extend value stream management globally as best we can. So kind of a interesting group here. So we're all loosely connected in with that. You can certainly follow along. A lot of good stuff coming out of that consortium if you want to dig in and understand more of what's going on with value stream management in the world. Awesome. So with that, one of the things that the consortium did earlier this year was pull together a report called the State of Value Stream Management. So this is the first one on that, and a lot of interesting findings coming out of that. Guys, just real quick for us on the panel, I want to throw out what were some of the interesting, surprising things you saw in that report, and let's just kind of jump in and surface maybe some of those aha moments as we start to get that data for the first time ever.
Yeah, Danny, one thing that I'll say that I was just really impressed with was the scope of the report, right? And, you know, when we kind of put this together, we had some goals, and I was really impressed with the level of content that came from it and the scale of those goals. So kind of just to walk through it, the first one was, you know, let's just start to understand how people are thinking about VSM. Let's capture that baseline in this first year of the Value Stream Management report. And then let's layer in that, you know, those findings at baseline with some of the best practices around value stream management, and then bring awareness to that throughout the industry. And you know, this type of webinar does exactly that. And then, you know, probably most importantly is to start to build that ROI case around value stream management. How can we start to shift it from a nice to have to a must have? You know, how does every organization start to, you know, find success with value stream management? So, you know, I wanted to kind of just provide that background before we really jumped into some of these findings.
Good. So there are a couple of things that kind of hit me. One, I was surprised at how many, especially the high performers, were using value stream mapping already. It's been around for a long time. Hadn't really heard a lot about it in industry, in the software industry, until recently of people actually using those techniques. So it was gratifying to see that they are. The other thing that stood out to me was how many DevOps teams were being aligned around value streams. That's pretty significant, and it's a big change in terms of ways of thinking. I would like to see more research on that in terms of the strategies that people are taking to do that. And then kind of leveraging what Brian was saying around ROI. I have very strong opinions on that. Anybody who's read my book will understand that. Having come from a lean background in my early part of my career, and probably seeing about 100 plus companies a year doing various analysis around lean strategies. It was interesting to understand that, well, let me put it this way. If we're going to improve our value streams in DevOps, that's going to be great. It takes time, it takes money, it takes effort. And a lot of companies, the executives who are funding it, for example, can get frustrated fairly quickly if they don't see a return on investment. The return on investment, in my mind, is not going to come from the improvement of the value streams within DevOps per se. It's going to become on how you use those improved software delivery capabilities to improve the other value streams in your organizations, whether you're talking about them as operational development or what have you. But it's the realignment of your improved software delivery capabilities to provide digital innovations to drive your other value stream outcomes that's going to generate the ROIs that justify all this effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess
I think that's a very good point.
Oh, sorry, I was going to jump in there. My little thought, realization there was the pervasiveness of flow metrics. It seemed like a lot of companies were using those, but the aha for me is that 70% of those companies still don't tie those metrics to business results. So it seems like while there's some traction there, maybe in our development value stream layer, there's still a lot to go to the left and right of that to actually bring in a cohesive value stream view. So still a lot of work to do on that, was my little observation.
Yeah, I think some of the aha moments that I had from the report, and maybe I intuitively knew this, but the report confirmed that when organizations are using value stream management practices, that they're typically high performing. And that was really good to see that, because it's something that I've been very passionate for a long time. But when the data behind it backs it up, that's really great. And I, like Brian, I was also pleasantly surprised about how many people participated in this study and the breadth and depth of the report that we did. And a lot of those people on this call were involved in developing the survey questions. And it's great to see how it came together. And it's great to see that competitors can work together to lift all boats, and that it benefits all of our companies. So co-opetition is actually a good thing.
That's a great point, Richard. I think that that's something that we can all take away from this as a big win, because the initial like year one is such an investment in the future, right? I mean, you're laying down the framework that you're going to be using to kind of compare data across years and get that really meaningful, hopefully industry shift towards value stream management, right? And so it's interesting, year one, we're really kind of self-selecting for folks who are already familiar with this terminology. You know, they're looking beyond DevOps, they're looking across organizations. And that is a, you know, that's this small population that's slowly growing or quickly growing, you know, we'll see. But I think that having so much diversity across even the early adopters who are part of year one was really interesting to see. So thinking about adopters, I'm going to jump in and start throwing some questions around, do some work in the session, give Danny a break. What do you folks see as the kind of goals that early adopters are aiming for when they're adopting VSM in their organizations? I'll go back to Brian.
Sure. Yeah. No, our customers kind of come from us across the full spectrum, right? We actually see quite a few customers that come and say, we don't even know where to get started here. You know, we just got maybe a new CTO that comes from a finance organization, and they're looking for metrics, and they're saying we need help even just defining what our KPI should be. But we also have on the other end much more sophisticated customers that know what they want to measure. They just can't do it in an effective real-time manner. And so really the first step that we see that provides quick value is around providing that visibility and that level of insights. And I think for VSM, that it's really table stakes at this point, right? If you look across the tooling and so forth, boy, I think everyone that calls themselves a VSM vendor at this point has a pretty sophisticated level of dashboarding and insights, and then it's a matter of kind of looking beyond that. But I'll pause there and kind of save the rest of that for later.
Cool. Well, Richard, what are you seeing? Are you seeing any difference, any kind of segmentation in terms of adoption? Like, are there different cohorts of customers that you're noticing?
Yeah, I mean, the customers that I'm noticing are really the ones who are more sophisticated at this point in time. They've been doing Agile and Lean for a while. And as I've surveyed various customers, most of the time what I get is value stream management. Who, what, where, what does that even mean? And we're just in our infancy. It's very nascent at this point. And a couple of cool things that I see is the organizations who are actually focusing on the value aspect of value stream management, trying to measure value. And that's even a smaller subset, yet it's the most important. But I think we're on this journey, just like we are with the other things like DevOps and Agile were, and where Lean has not been as popular as Agile. Yet there's a lot of Lean in Agile, and what I'm seeing is more focus on value stream mapping and on DevOps. And to what Gary said is we need to look at the whole value stream end to end. So it's just not when DevOps starts; it's really from the receipt of the customer request in understanding the processes that things go through, because customers don't care about the the lead time from when we start developing to when they start coding. They really care about from the time they put in the request until it's really in production and it's being used. So there's a lot of mind shifts that I think that we need to do in order to make this a really valuable practice.
So Gary, we've heard visibility, we've heard value, we've heard velocity as sort of aims of these organizations adopting VSM. Do you see quality in there as well? Is quality something that folks are looking for in the context of VSM yet?
That's a good question. I think quality is at the heart of all things that we try to do. And certainly Agile, that was a big part of why Agile, became so important. But in terms of value stream management, if you go back to traditional lean concepts of eliminating waste, ultimately, that's a key concept right there in terms of quality. The more you can eliminate the things that don't add value, the better you're going to be toward driving quality. Now, quality also has another component, which is the perception of the customer and what do they want and what are they willing to pay for. So there's that yin yang, right? You can over-engineer something too. And engineers love to over-engineer things. That's what we do for a living, frankly. So there's always that balancing act, if you will. But I think, the key thing that I would like people to understand is lean is all about eliminating waste, driving efficiencies, improving productivity, lowering your total cost of ownership, and thereby becoming more competitive. And those who do that better are going to be more competitive than those who don't. And what's really amazing to me, and I know there's always a danger in saying, okay, well, I saw this, so that's the way the world is, so I don't want to go there. But I do want to say this. As a consultant who's reaching out to a lot of different companies, I am amazed, first off, how many are still doing fundamentally traditional project management practices. I'm getting a lot of people who are kind of going, oh, aha, I get it. When I start talking about the different problems they solve, there's nothing wrong with project management, for example. It's having the right tool for the right problem, right? Carpenters have many tools. There's a reason for that. All right, we don't use a hammer to screw a nail. A screw in, right? We use nails. So the same thing happens with our management philosophies. And if you're doing something that's relatively unique and very structured, and it's not going to change, you know exactly what you want to do, and you can't really change it. You're not going to go add 3 more floors to a building, right? After you start construction. You're not going to go add 100 feet to the beam of a ship, right, in the middle of construction. So project management's not going to go away. But in software development, the reason why software development evolved agile is because we need to be more nimble. We need to be more responsive to our customers' needs. And we need to be able to allow them to have more input and see what's going on through the development process, because they'll get insights. Also, business changes much more dynamically. And so we need to be more responsive. So we saw in the 1990s, for example, methods and tools and case tools coming along to make things more agile. And then, of course, the Agile Manifesto. But Lean was all about a different problem. It was been around for a while. You could argue Henry Ford, right, with his automobile assembly lines. But it really took off with Toyota. They were in a devastated economy coming out of World War II. They were an island nation. They had to be able to produce products efficiently with a great deal of value and quality and exactly what customers want if they were going to compete in the global market. So everything for them was about efficiencies, driving out waste, and productivity. And so they were solving that problem, different than Agile, which is really more about flexibility. So now what we're seeing, what we need to see is the combination of the values and principles of Agile, which I truly believe in. I think most people do that have studied it, but with the productivity efficiencies of Lean. And that's what we're seeing with this whole mix of Lean Agile, I think. But what's amazing to me is it's if you look out in industry, There's a lot of people who are still struggling to figure out how these things go together, if they go together, how to get there, right, from where they're at. And that's what I'm seeing. And that's probably way more than you were asking for in the questions, but that's what I'm seeing.
Steve,
Well,
maybe
it's
just
go ahead.
a short thing, just because you had mentioned quality. And I think there's a really interesting aspect of value stream management in terms of quality. And one of my favorite metrics is the percent of complete and accurate, because we all always forget about the importance that if you have poor quality, it's really going to impact your flow. And complete and accurate means that a downstream process, did it accept that upstream work, or did it have to return to the prior step? And it can have a tremendous impact on flow.
That's a great point. And that was something that I was kind of curious about under the surface of the quality question was, we have this tooling ecosystem. Where are we at? Is it challenging to measure percent complete and accurate in value stream management? I know that it's very possible, and it's part and parcel of the mapping exercise. But in terms of management, I think, my impression is that we're a ways off from there, but I'm curious to hear about, just in general, what are the challenges that folks are facing when they're aiming to adopt this new model for visibility and management of work across the organization. I'll jump to you, Brian, and then we can loop back through.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a great area. We've had this notion of shift left for years, right? I've probably heard it for 6-7 years now. And, I think we've had modest success with actually operationalizing that concept of shift left. And I think in large part, it is around tooling, right? We just don't have the ability to build the relationships across the siloed data coming from different tools. And what these value stream management platforms allow us to do is now build those relationships, provide that visibility, and then connect it into our orchestration throughout the pipeline. And so, in our value stream management product called HCL Accelerate, we have a pipeline orchestration capability that taps into basically any data available throughout your tool chain. So you can imagine after a CI build, you'll have an artifact. Maybe that will have gone through unit testing and some level of security scans. You can actually pull that data in real time and use that for gating decisions. So, it can be a manual review. Some human could look it over, make sure those results are correct, and you can go. Or, there's capabilities like smart gates where you can have data-driven decisions where the system just evaluates those results and auto promotes it to the next environment. And maybe there's a whole nother series of functional tests or whatnot that's run there, and you kind of just complete that process. And we've seen customers kind of have a green light process all the way into production like that, all the way automated. But it really comes down to your comfort level and policies as an organization. But it's doing a lot to change the long-lived model of the cab, right? If you can have that 360-degree view or the traceability view of what content and what quality and so on and so forth is in that actual artifact that's going to get deployed, it gives you a lot of power to streamline that process.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna pile on there and say, a lot of the companies that I work with, they have an idea there's a problem, like a qualitative idea. It takes us too long to get something to production. And up until this point, they've not been able to connect all the systems to build a quantitative view of that. But now I think, our companies are representing that, hey, we're there and we're able to actually plug into those systems and show you with data where the real problem is. And so for what I feel is the first time, we're able to take automated, data feeds, understand where we're going with this stuff and actually visualize those bottlenecks. And then we can focus improvements on that thing versus, years ago, when I started doing agile consulting, it was kind of like this broad spectrum fix, for a variety of things that might ail you, implement this methodology, things will get better, trust me. But it wasn't a point, pragmatic solution to the exact bottleneck because we didn't have data into that, right? And so, but now we do. And so I think companies are able to take a much more pragmatic approach to their improvements. And as a result, you'll get less organ rejection across the organization, less side effects of, instead of implementing this big heavyweight methodology, let's go in and we're going to solve problems with data. And then we're also able to get that data real time so we can see, was that problem actually fixed? Is it still a problem? How much did we fix it? What did we do on the baseline? Let's go off we go. So to me, it's fundamentally changing the way that we do our agile transformations, change management, digital transformations, et cetera, in organizations. We can now do a data-driven approach instead of a methodology-driven approach.
That's a great point. Gary, from your perspective, as a consultant, like the challenge that I kind of see with a lot of folks is that because this, value stream management is very tool chain driven, and it's you sort of have a garbage in, garbage out problem, or just not access to data. You're missing the tooling. Are you seeing that as well? Like, are you seeing like a challenging ramp up time or onboarding time that it takes folks to get really going off the starting blocks?
Yeah, again, from my situation, and I'd hate to say it's true for everybody, but executives a lot of times don't know what they don't know. So they see a lot of money going out and they don't know why. And they're making decisions based upon input from maybe developers, in my case anyway, who have, read all of Gene Kim's books and everybody else's books and about Accelerate and how we want to improve our flow through DevOps. And now there's value stream management. So it's a lot of tools, a lot of integration, a lot of orchestration work that's got to get done, a lot of alignment that has to happen. And the executives who control funding don't always have the time to appreciate what's involved or why. They just see the money going out, and that can be a problem without seeing the value. So getting that alignment with management, I think, is critical, and having the data to show them is critical. Otherwise, it's as a developer, an engineer, right, in the IT shop, intuitively the things that are going on, but how do you communicate that back to the executives who control the funding? And then how do you show them what the ROI is going to be? Those are the challenges that we have to deal with.
Richard, finishing off with you here, like what are the challenges that you are either focused on or the ones that you worry about the most in terms of really scaling this up and growing this to be just the way we do business, post 2021?
I still think there's a long way for people to even be aware of value stream management and why you'd want to do it. And then another area that I'm really concerned about is on metrics. In fact, I was just speaking to a very large financial customer today, and it seems what's happening is the executives are misinterpreting the metrics. And then they start asking for changes to happen within the organization. They're actually going to make the problem worse when there isn't really a problem. So you have to look at metrics as if they're being provided for learning and for understanding. It's like when you get a blood test from the doctor's office and there's a ton of metrics that you get. If a number is above the line, it doesn't mean that you're deathly ill and then start prescribing a whole bunch of medication that actually may make things worse. Okay, what's actually happening? What's the root cause of why something is happening? And let's attack the right problem. So to me, that's a big problem. And we're simple things like using velocity as a measure of productivity. I mean, productivity isn't just one number. You have to look at a bunch of different numbers, which provide, these are signals of how well you're doing from a productivity standpoint. How long does it take for us to implement enhancements? Or, how long does it take us to burn down all the demand that we have? Are we actually focusing on and I think this is the biggest problem, are we actually focusing on the things that move the needle in the organization? Because you can do hundreds, if not thousands, of features in a very large organization, but none of them actually have an impact on the bottom line. And when you start bringing in Pendo data, which we're doing in our solution, is that we then can correlate, A, is this feature being used? B, was there any correlation between that feature being implemented and the metrics, the business metrics associated with it? So combining the business metrics with the outputs and seeing if are they on the same trajectory. Now, necessarily won't tell you one for one whether something that you just implemented is having an impact on the business, but you get some strong signals that they are. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem, is really, are we actually providing value? And I suspect in most cases, we're doing lots of work that's not providing lots of value.
That's a really interesting point. I really wish that we had a Standish report from the last couple of years, because it's been so long since we've heard what percentage of features that we're building are actually being used by customers. And, the curve of feature delivery has been accelerating dramatically. Our ability, we've figured out how to ship features. I don't know how much clarity and understanding we have around what is the value of all that work that's going out, and what is that across the industry. So we heard earlier, so go ahead.
To that point, so I used to rely on a Standish report, but it hasn't been updated in a long time. And in my research, I found out that Pendo produces a similar report. And interestingly enough, they say that about 70% of the features aren't used. So it almost lines up exactly with what the Chaos report has been saying over the past several years.
It's a little bit worse, actually. I think the Standish was at 60, right?
Yeah, I thought it was around 70, but I could be wrong. 60, 70, maybe. Somewhere around that, but that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Another point that I've been concerned about, which is feature overload for the customer, and how much can they really absorb? And when you multiply that times the number of products that we're using today. So I think we've got to be careful as we accelerate. Are we doing the right acceptance testing? Are we doing enough work on the front end of the user interface design to make sure that what we're delivering is findable, discoverable, usable, makes sense, right? So we got to be careful. It's not just always all about acceleration. That's great, but it can't be just about acceleration, because you can deliver a lot of stuff that very quickly nobody values, nobody understands, nobody even knows exists. So I think we have to be very careful on those things.
Yeah, I think we do risk a scenario where, just like we saw with Agile's success, basically piling on a bunch of stuff for ops teams to work through and deal with. DevOps could potentially bring us to a point where we're just delivering things that customers are now having to deal with. And I think that one of the most valuable aspects of value stream thinking is that value is a first-class citizen, right? You really can't avoid it. You can't interpret it incorrectly. It really is there right in front of your face. So I like that as an evolution beyond DevOps, because, it makes it crystal clear you have to be thinking about value here. We touched on opportunities a little bit before, but just as a contrast to challenges, Danny, what's your favorite opportunity that you see in the value stream space? Like, what's the thing that gets you really excited?
Yeah, well, I think just continuing that journey of continuous improvement, right? If you think about it, Agile is really based on continuous improvement. We've got retros built into Scrum at the team level, and you see that progression extending as teams got functioning better. Scaled Agile comes in on the scene, and let's get teams of teams functioning better. That ushered in DevOps. Let's automate code, DevSecOps. Let's create a culture of shared ownership as we move code to production. Value stream management is a natural progression coming out of that, where now let's look bigger and bigger. And I think just continuing that same theme as it goes into business agility and redefining our business processes to help them flow better. to me, I'm just super excited about always making something a little bit better, finding some small experiment to run, getting a feedback cycle and continuing that. So value stream management, it's a great opportunity just to continue that journey in a systematic fashion. We can kind of align around that term and go, but ultimately we're trying to figure out, what's the best way to get that value to a customer. And, ultimately it's going to help the business's bottom line as we do that. So I'm just excited to see the conversation here now, excited to see where it's going in the future as well.
Excellent. Excellent. What about you, Brian? What's the thing that gets you really fired up about value stream management that you see as kind of different and unique here?
Yeah, Danny was touching on something that they're at a team level that we feel really strongly about. We think for value stream management to reach its full potential, it's got to be something the entire team embraces and enables the team. A lot of the discussion around metrics and value stream management today, it has been at more of a management level. And there's certainly a lot of value that leadership can get from this data, but I think to really get the true benefit, it's got to be at the team level. Something like Richard had mentioned around value. I think back to the most effective product teams that I've been a part of in my career. Everyone on that team knows the business value of the item that they're working on, and we would actually hold retrospectives not at the end of a sprint, but at the end of the evaluation period of that deliverable. So it may be, whatever the run rate is on, say, an A/B test, 60, 90 days out until you get that statistical significance. The whole product team would actually review that data to know if, the deliverable they had actually moved the needle or not. And, I think it's that level of visibility alongside all of these flow and productivity measures, on a real-time basis, having visibility into where the bottlenecks are and who needs help, what should I work on next, and then layering in some machine learning models that can help make the team make better decisions day to day. Those are the types of things that I get really excited about.
That's great. I really like that focus on the team. I think that a lot of value stream mapping practice and history is really at the organization level, right? Really primarily concerned with what's the, how is Heinz making the ketchup? And, diving into the teams, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of connect the work and the value to individual contributors and show them, here's how you fit into the big picture. Here's who's downstream of you that you have to worry about. Don't send them a bunch of crap that they have to deal with. And, your work is challenging if you don't have a relationship upstream, right? You want to make sure that you are fitting into the flow and not conforming to the flow, but you're part of a relay race, right? And the baton handoff is critical. The flow of that overall as a team is super critical. And that really gets me excited. Richard, what about you? What's the thing that, you're really excited about in this space?
Yeah, one of the things that I think that value stream management is really helping with is busting silos. Even though that we're working in an agile way, we are still organized in functional silos. And it's crazy when I speak to many companies, they tell me, in order to speak to this other team, I've got to speak to their manager first before I can speak to them. And so we have a situation where we really can't collaborate well. And when we have the value stream thinking, and when we move away from the project model to organizing work in value streams, then we can collaborate across the silos because we have cross-functional teams. And if we fund those value streams instead of funding projects, we can have long-lived, stable teams. And to me, those are some of the things that are really going to move the needle is actually working together, because for some reason we still can't work together. My son was telling me that he got in trouble because he was being too collaborative, his manager told him. He was, and I said to him, what do you mean by that? He said, I can't speak to them unless I speak to that person's boss. And that's crazy. The whole point, the way we create great products and services is through that collaboration. The way we work faster is by breaking down those silos. So I think that's one of the more exciting areas to me. And and I respect the profession of project management very much, but the project model is not designed to do the kind of work that we are doing today. It's very sequential. The feedback is delayed. So I think that that's another area where we're working in a whole different way. The way that we're organized in a functional silo is not how work doesn't happen in a hierarchy. Work happens across the hierarchy. So why are we still organizing people in hierarchies? We need to change that. And we can do that in a virtual way. So it doesn't have to be such a disruptive thing.
Yeah, I agree. That brings to mind Dominica de Grandis, who says, we have to bring the work to the people, not the people to the work, right? The project model is sort of like, we're going to pluck a bunch of people out of where they are, mash them together for a while, and then, send them back where they came from once we get what we want, hopefully. I think that's, we are moving towards this continuous sustainable value delivery, right? And it's interesting. If we have time, I'd love to come back to the project thing, because I think it's very interesting, how these things fit into VSM world. But Gary, on to you. What's the thing that gets you really excited about the future of VSM, or the present of VSM, wherever you want to take it? You're still muted.
I have a puppy that's a little bit noisy at times. So Richard touched on the subject I was going to chat about, which was breaking down silos, because the flow of value is horizontal. And unfortunately, we're still aligned vertically. But let me take it in a little bit different direction, and that's visibility is the exciting part of value stream management. The more that we can make that simpler to provide visibility across the horizontal flows, the better things will be for our customers. The data is good because you need to drill down, but we need to make sure that we provide the visualizations, right, of knowledge-based work, because it's not like a manufacturing floor where you can go out and see the flow of work and see where materials are building up and the costs that are there associated with it. It's a lot harder in a virtual world. And so much of what we do in business, especially now that we really live in a digital economy, is virtualized. So anything we can do to enhance visualization of our horizontal flows is important. Let me give you a conversation as an example. I was talking to Todd Spurl, who's one of the partners at LeanFit, and he made an observation. They had done some work with a healthcare company, I think it was up in Minnesota, did really well, and had a lot of accolades for their implementation of lean concepts. And so well that they got acquired. And then new management came in and they just didn't get it. They couldn't see how things were working because everything was now flowing horizontally and they were used to their vertical structures. And so they came in and imposed their more traditional management structures and broke everything. And he said, not only did it break everything, it broke harder and worse than where they started from. And that's a critical concern, because when we can't see what's going on and we've put our processes now to manage things horizontally, and you try to come back in vertically, you can't see what you've done and you can't see how to fix it. So this is where I think value stream management tools have a key role to play, and why I'm such a proponent of going beyond just the DevOps part of value stream management, but applying the same visualizations, the same meta model, the same common normalized data model across all value stream activities, no matter what value stream we're talking about, not just IT.
I love hearing that, because I'm a big fan of, the concept that organizations are just a network of value streams, right? And they flow together, they flow apart. I love that the visibility highlight, because to me, what it makes me think of is just the inclusion of it, like the ability to see the contributions of all those people behind the scenes who, some of them are picking up work for other people. They're constantly filling in the gaps. They provide the glue that makes sure that things don't slip through the cracks. And, value stream management gives us an opportunity to kind of recognize that effort, recognize that contribution and highlight when people really are, going above and beyond to make sure that work flows through the system. So I'm really excited about that as well. Like it's funny how automation can help us be more human and support, the most human aspects of our job. And that's kind of an interesting thing that I hear a lot of the time when people talk about automation, is that, it's I don't want my job to be robotic. I don't want to be part of an assembly line. But when I think of value stream management, I think of the opposite. I think, it's going to be taking care of all of the management that is not enabling, it's not supporting, right? I think of that management. So I kind of want to touch on that. If we've got a couple minutes before we wrap up. What is the role of management in value stream management? Is it, do you see it changing? Do you see it evolving? Is there going to be a challenge in kind of moving to a value stream thinking model rather than, our traditional org chart hierarchy, command and control? Danny, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think the ideal role for management is always to enable the teams, to take away blockers, that kind of stuff, provide that enablement. So I think that only continues, and it continues with even more intensity. So that point of like, finally, for once, I can see how my little cog can fit into the whole machine and get us down the road where we need to get to. Like, that's an amazing place where now everybody in the organization can have purpose, not just the product manager, right? And so management's even more, since I know where I fit in the cog and I know what the challenges are, set me loose, give me the ability to do that. So I feel management's role, when it's best served, doesn't change. It's just that even more.
Excellent. Yeah. Really quick, Brian, do you see management evolving in any specific ways? Have you noticed any patterns at all yet?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's huge change here. I mean, it's always been true that effective managers are very data driven, but we're seeing whole new roles emerge, like value stream architects, value stream managers. We have a value stream manager ourselves, at HCL Software. And, I think Richard brought up the role of project manager. I actually spent many years there. And as I reflect back, I think I was probably more of a value stream project manager more than anything, right? More traditional siloed organization. In many ways, we were very product oriented, but the project manager was the one that actually allowed us to go horizontal across these value streams, kind of without even knowing it. And those effective value stream managers, or even effective project managers, are not just tactically executing tasks; they're tying all of that back to business value. And I think that aligns really nicely with where the market's going to be heading.
Richard, what do you think about roles in the value stream ecosystem? Is there any specific role that you're kind of excited about seeing adoption grow with?
Yeah, I think the role of value stream manager, and it really hasn't been fully defined yet, is going to be a very important role. And I think there is kind of potentially two aspects of it. One, from a business viewpoint. And when you're looking at the work being done, how it's flowing, and are we actually getting business value from that work? Do we need to reorganize based upon what we're trying to accomplish now? Because a value stream is never really static. You have to change the team composition. And I want to come back to management for a second, and how management is changing. So
unfortunately, Richard, sorry, I got
to cut you off. No problem.
We are out of time. Sorry, Gary, I would like to get to you, but we'll pick up the discussion on LinkedIn or elsewhere on Twitter. One thing I want to highlight to folks is that we are making a lot of progress. After the report, we've put together a value stream management foundation course, which is coming from the Value Stream Management Consortium, which I've been contributing to, really excited about putting out in the world and hearing the response about. But I want to thank you, Danny, for picking up the slack when I joined late. Thank you to all of you for joining the panel. This was a fantastic discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it. I truly did. I hope this was incredibly valuable, and I hope to talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.